The dust devil that whipped across Quinton Vance's ranch that scorching August afternoon in 1878 brought with it more than just the dry Arizona heat. It brought a woman who would change everything he thought he knew about keeping his heart locked away. He was repairing the fence line along his western pasture when he heard the knock at his front door, faint but persistent enough to carry across the yard. Quinton straightened, wiping the sweat from his brow with a worn handkerchief, and squinted toward his modest ranch house. A figure stood on his porch, small and dark against the bleached wood. Visitors were rare this far outside Tonopah Junction, especially midday when the sun turned the Arizona territory into an oven. By the time he reached the house, his curiosity had grown into concern. The woman on his porch looked like she had walked through hell itself. Her dark hair hung in tangled waves beneath a dusty bonnet, her dress was torn at the hem, and her lips were cracked from thirst. But her eyes, deep brown and defiant, met his without wavering. "I need water," she said, her voice hoarse but steady. "My horse threw a shoe 5 miles back. I have been walking since dawn." Quinton did not hesitate. "Come inside, please." "The well would be sufficient," she said, straightening her shoulders despite the obvious exhaustion weighing on her. "The well is outside in this heat. Inside, I have cool water from the spring house." He opened the door wider. "I am not letting you stand out here another minute, miss. Your lips are bleeding." She hesitated only a moment before stepping inside, and Quinton caught the subtle sag in her posture once she crossed the threshold, as if the shade alone had granted her reprieve. He guided her to a chair at his kitchen table and quickly fetched a pitcher of water and a clean cup. She drank 3 cups in quick succession, and he refilled it each time without comment. When she finally set the cup down, some color had returned to her cheeks. "Thank you," she said. "I can pay you." "I do not take payment for water." He pulled out a chair across from her and sat down, giving her space but wanting to assess if she needed medical attention. "How far are you traveling, Prescott? I have family there." She touched her cracked lips gingerly. "I thought I could make it to Tonopah Junction by noon, but the heat was worse than I anticipated." "You are from back east," a small smile flickered across her face. "Is it that obvious?" "Your dress is too fine for desert travel, and no one from around here would set out in August without more water." He said it kindly, stating fact rather than criticism. "I am Quinton Vance, Olivia Zimmerman." She extended her hand, and he shook it gently, noting the blisters forming on her palm. She had been carrying something heavy, her bags, most likely. "Where did you leave your horse?" "Tied in what little shade I could find near some rocks. The poor thing needs water desperately." "I tried to bring her, but she was limping too badly." Quinton stood immediately. "I will ride out and bring her back. You stay here, rest. There is bread and cheese in that cupboard if you are hungry. Help yourself to anything you need." "You would do that?" Olivia looked up at him, genuine surprise softening her features. Of course, no horse should suffer in this heat. He grabbed his hat from the peg by the door. "I will be back within the hour. Make yourself comfortable, Miss Zimmerman. You are safe here." He saw something shift in her expression at those last words, a vulnerability she quickly masked, and he wondered what had driven her to make such a dangerous journey alone. But questions could wait. Right now, a horse needed help. Quinton saddled his gelding, Duke, and headed west with an extra lead rope. He found Olivia's mare exactly where she had described, a pretty bay with an obvious limp and foam dried on her neck. He approached slowly, speaking in low tones, and the horse nickered gratefully when he offered water from his canteen into his hat. After she drank, he examined her hoof. The shoe was completely gone, and the hoof wall was chipped but not cracked. She would heal with proper care. Leading the mare slowly, Quinton made his way back to the ranch. The journey took longer than he had anticipated, and the sun had moved considerably by the time he reached his barn. He unsaddled the mare, gave her more water and some grain, and made a mental note to check her hoof again in the morning. When he entered the house, he found Olivia asleep at his table, her head resting on her folded arms. She had not touched the food. He stood quietly for a moment, studying her face in repose. She was younger than he had first thought, mid-20s perhaps, close to his own 28 years. Even exhausted and dusty, there was something striking about her, a determination in the set of her jaw even in sleep. He cleared his throat softly and her eyes snapped open, immediate alertness replacing sleep. She sat up quickly, wincing at the stiffness in her neck. "Your mare is in the barn, fed and watered. The hoof will heal, but she should not be ridden for at least a week, maybe 2. Olivia's face fell. 2 weeks, but I must get to Prescott. You can take the stage from Tonopah Junction. It runs twice a week." He moved to the stove where he had beef stew from yesterday's supper. He began heating it, not looking at her as he spoke. "But you should rest at least a day before you travel again. You are dehydrated and exhausted. Pushing yourself now could make you seriously ill. I cannot impose on your hospitality. It is not an imposition." He turned to face her. "Miss Zimmerman, I have a spare room. It is clean and cool. You need rest and proper food. Your horse needs time to heal." These are simple facts. There is no imposition in helping someone who needs it. She studied him for a long moment, and he met her gaze steadily. Finally, she nodded. "One night. Then I will go to town and arrange for the stage. Fair enough." He served the stew with fresh bread, and they ate in companionable silence. He noticed she was left-handed, that she ate slowly despite obvious hunger, and that her hands trembled slightly when she lifted her spoon. She was more exhausted than she was admitting. After supper, he showed her to the spare room. It had been his sister's room before she married and moved to California 3 years ago. The bed was made with clean linens. He kept the house tidy out of habit, and the window faced east, catching the morning light. There is a wash basin and fresh water, towels in the chest. "If you need anything, my room is across the hall, but I will likely be in the barn for another hour or so, checking on the animals. Mr. Vance." She turned to him, and in the lamplight her eyes looked almost amber. "Thank you, truly. I do not know what would have happened if I had not found your ranch. You would have found it eventually, or someone would have found you. This is still civilized country, mostly." He offered a small smile. "Rest well, Miss Zimmerman." He left her then, heading back outside where the evening air had finally begun to cool. As he went through his nightly routine, checking the horses, securing the chicken coop, making sure the cattle had water, his mind kept returning to the woman now sleeping under his roof. There was a story there, one she had not told. The expensive dress, now ruined by travel. The blisters on her hands that spoke of unfamiliarity with hard labor. The way her eyes had scanned his house, cataloging exits and potential threats. And most telling, the small pistol he had glimpsed in her bag when she set it down, the kind of weapon a woman carried when she had reason to fear. But whatever her story was, it was hers to tell or keep. He would help her get to Prescott safely, and then she would be on her way. He ignored the small voice in his head that whispered disappointment at that thought. The next morning, Quinton woke before dawn as usual and went about his chores quietly so as not to disturb his guest. He was surprised when he came in from feeding the horses to find Olivia already awake, standing in his kitchen with her hair braided and her dress brushed clean of dust. "Good morning," she said. "I hope you do not mind. I made coffee." "Mind? I am grateful." He washed his hands at the basin and accepted the cup she offered. The coffee was strong and good. "You slept well, better than I have in weeks." She said it without thinking, then seemed to catch herself. The bed was very comfortable, thank you. He decided not to press about the weeks of poor sleep. Instead, he set about making breakfast eggs from his chickens, bacon from the smokehouse, and biscuits that he had become surprisingly adept at after years of living alone. They ate together as morning light streamed through the windows, and this time conversation came easier. She asked about his ranch, and he told her about the 100 head of cattle he ran, the horses he bred, the quiet life he had built here over the past 6 years. You came here after the war? She asked. After I needed space, I suppose, room to breathe. He did not mention the battles the friends lost, the nightmares that had finally begun to fade. What takes you to Prescott? She hesitated, then said, My aunt lives there. She is the only family I have left. I am sorry for your losses. Thank you. She looked down at her plate. My father passed last year. My mother has been gone since I was a child. There was nothing left for me in Philadelphia, so I decided to make a new start. Philadelphia to Arizona is quite a change. Sometimes change is necessary. She met his eyes, and he saw steel there beneath the exhaustion. Sometimes staying in one place means slow death of a different sort. He understood that better than she knew. Well, Arizona has a way of testing a person. But if you survive the testing, it also has a way of setting you free. Something in her expression softened. I hope you are right. After breakfast, Quinton hitched his wagon and helped Olivia load her belongings. She had 2 trunks and a carpet bag, which he secured carefully. The ride to Tonopah Junction took an hour, and they talked more easily now, sharing stories of their different worlds, his of cattle drives and desert storms, hers of city life and society expectations she had never quite fit. I was supposed to marry, she said suddenly as they crested a hill with a view of the town below. A man my father chose, wealthy, respected, utterly cold. After father died, his true nature showed itself. He believed he owned me because of a promise made years ago. Quinton's hands tightened on the reins. Did he hurt you? He tried. Her voice was steady, but he heard the emotion beneath it. I refused the marriage. He did not take it well, so I left, used what money I had to come here. Is he following you? I do not know. I hope not. She glanced at him. I probably should not have told you all that. I am glad you did. You are safe here, Olivia. I give you my word on that. She smiled then, genuinely, and it transformed her face. You are a good man, Quinton Vance. In Tonopah Junction, they discovered the next stage to Prescott would not run for 3 more days. The previous coach had thrown a wheel and was being repaired. Quinton saw the dismay on Olivia's face. You can stay at the hotel, he offered. Or, he hesitated, then continued. You can stay at the ranch. It is more comfortable and your mare is there. You could rest properly before continuing your journey. I could not impose for 3 more days. It is not an imposition. Honestly, it would be nice to have the company. I do not get much conversation out of cattle and horses. He kept his tone light, but he meant every word. Something about her presence had brought life back into his quiet house. She considered, then nodded. If you are certain, I am. They bought supplies in town, fabric for a riding skirt more suitable for the territory, some medical supplies for her horse, and additional food. Quinton insisted on paying despite her protests, arguing that she was his guest, and he would not hear otherwise. On the ride back, storm clouds gathered on the horizon, and they made it home just as the first drops began to fall. Arizona summer storms were violent and brief, and this one was no exception. They stood on the porch watching lightning split the sky while rain hammered the dust into submission. It is beautiful, Olivia said, her face tilted up to catch the spray of mist blown by wind. Philadelphia never had storms like this. Wait until you see the sunset after it clears. The whole sky turns colors you cannot even name. They watched together until the storm passed, leaving the air clean and cool. And when the sunset came, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple and gold, Quinton glanced over to find Olivia crying silently, tears streaming down her face. "What is wrong?" he asked gently. "Nothing." "Everything. I did not know the world could be this beautiful. I did not know I could feel this free." She wiped her eyes, laughing a little. "Listen to me, I sound ridiculous. You do not sound ridiculous at all." She turned to him, and something passed between them in that moment, an understanding that went beyond words. He wanted to reach for her hand but held himself back. She had been through too much, needed time to heal, and he would not press advantage over someone vulnerable under his protection. But the wanting was there, undeniable and growing stronger with every hour she spent in his home. The next 3 days fell into an easy rhythm. Olivia proved surprisingly adaptable to ranch life. She insisted on helping, gathering eggs in the morning, helping him prepare meals, even accompanying him on his rounds to check on cattle. He showed her how to sit a horse Western style, laughing at her determination despite obvious nervousness. She showed him how to properly fold linens the way her mother had taught her, and read to him in the evenings from a book of poetry she had brought from Philadelphia. They talked for hours, sharing their histories, their dreams, their fears. He told her about his time in the war, the things he had seen, the way the silence of the ranch had helped him heal. She told him about growing up with a cold father who saw her as property, about her mother's death when she was 10, about the books she had read that showed her worlds beyond her gilded cage. "What will you do in Prescott?" he asked one evening as they sat on the porch, watching stars emerge. "I am not entirely sure. My aunt runs a boarding house. I suppose I will help her with that until I determine my next step." She was quiet for a moment. "I have been thinking perhaps I could teach. I had a good education, and frontier towns always need teachers. You would be an excellent teacher." "You think so, I know so. You are patient and kind, and you have fire in you. Children respond to that," she laughed. "Fire, is that what you call it? My father had other words for it: stubborn, difficult, unmanageable. Your father was wrong." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and he felt his breath catch. In the lamplight from the house, her eyes were luminous. "How is it that I have known you only days, and yet you see me more clearly than people I knew for years?" Maybe they were not looking at you properly. Maybe they only saw what they wanted to see. "And what do you see?" "I see a woman who walked 5 miles through desert heat rather than give up. I see someone who left everything familiar to chase freedom. I see strength and grace and determination." He paused, then added quietly, "I see someone I do not want to say goodbye to." The air between them seemed to thicken, charged with possibility. Olivia's lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Instead, she reached out slowly and took his hand. Her fingers were small in his, warm and certain. "I do not want to say goodbye either," she whispered. They sat like that as night deepened around them, hands clasped, neither willing to break the moment. Eventually, Quinton spoke, his voice rough with emotion. "Olivia, I know this is sudden. I know you came here seeking safety, not entanglement, but I need you to know these days with you have meant something to me. Everything, actually. You have brought light back into this house, into my life. Quinton, let me finish, please." He turned to face her fully, still holding her hand. "I am not asking for promises. I know you have plans, a life you are building in Prescott. But if there were any chance, any possibility that you might consider staying here, building that life with me instead," he stopped, searching her face. "I am saying this poorly. What I mean is, I am falling in love with you, Olivia Zimmerman. I think I started falling the moment you stood on my porch asking for water." Tears shone in her eyes, catching the lamplight. I am falling in love with you too. I have been trying not to, telling myself it was gratitude or circumstance or just relief at being safe. But it is not any of those things. It is you, the way you move through the world with quiet strength, the way you show kindness without expecting anything in return, the way you look at me like I am something precious. You are precious. She brought her free hand up to cup his cheek, her touch gentle. I am afraid. I just escaped one cage. What if I am trading it for another? This would never be a cage. You would be free here, completely free. To teach, to explore, to be yourself without apology. He turned his head to kiss her palm. I do not want to own you, Olivia. I want to stand beside you. There is a difference. I know there is. I see that in you. She drew a shaky breath. I am still afraid. Fear is reasonable. Trust takes time. I am not asking you to decide anything tonight. He stood, drawing her up with him. But think about it, please. Think about what we could build here together. She nodded, and he walked her to her door, releasing her hand reluctantly. But before she went inside, she rose on her toes and pressed a soft kiss to his cheek. Good night, Quinton. Good night, Olivia. He lay awake long into the night, his cheek burning where her lips had touched, hope and fear warring in his chest. The next morning brought news that changed everything. Quinton had ridden into town early for supplies and came back with tension radiating from every line of his body. Olivia met him at the barn, concern immediate on her face. What is wrong? There is a man in town asking questions about a woman matching your description. Says he is your fiancé, that you ran away and he is here to bring you home. The color drained from Olivia's face. Robert, he found me. His name is Robert Caldwell. Arrived yesterday on the evening stage, stayed the night at the hotel. Been telling everyone who will listen that you are confused, unwell, that your grief over your father made you unstable. That is a lie, all of it. Her hands clenched into fists. He wants to control me, control my father's money. The marriage would give him legal right to everything. Quinton stepped closer, his voice low and fierce. He will not take you, I promise you that. You do not understand. Robert has money influence. He can make life very difficult. I will not let him destroy you because of me. She was already moving toward the house. I need to leave. Now, I can ride your horse to Prescott and send him back with Olivia. Stop. He caught her arm gently. Running solved nothing. He found you here, he can find you in Prescott. Your aunt's location is not a secret. Then what do? You fight, but not alone. He took both her hands. Marry me, she stared at him. What? Marry me? Today? If you are my wife, he has no claim on you. Your father's money becomes yours legally, not his. He loses everything he came here for. Quinton, you cannot, we cannot, that is not. She could not seem to finish a sentence. I know it is fast. I know it is not what either of us imagined. But Olivia, I meant what I said last night. I love you. I want to build a life with you. This just moves the timeline forward. But what if I am just a burden? What if you regret? The only thing I would regret is letting you face this alone when I have the power to help. He squeezed her hands. I am not proposing just to save you, though I would do that regardless. I am proposing because I want you in my life, permanently. Because these past days have shown me what happiness looks like, and it looks like you sitting at my table, riding beside me, laughing at my terrible jokes. Despite everything, she laughed, tears streaming down her face. Your jokes are terrible. Exactly. You need to stay and help me improve them. It is practically a public service. You are insane. Maybe, but I am also serious. Marry me, Olivia. Choose freedom. Choose us. She searched his face for a long moment. He let her look, hiding nothing, letting her see every honest emotion. Finally, she nodded. Yes. Yes, I will marry you. He pulled her into his arms then, holding her close, feeling her heart racing against his chest. We need to move quickly. If he is in town asking questions, someone will eventually point him toward this ranch. They rode to Tonopah Junction within the hour, Olivia wearing her new riding skirt and her best remaining dress beneath it. The town had no church yet, but the justice of the peace, Samuel Morton, could perform legal marriages. They found him at the general store buying tobacco. "Sam, I need you to marry us. Now, if possible." Sam looked between Quinton and Olivia, taking in their serious expressions and urgent manner. He was a practical man who had lived in the territory long enough to know when not to ask too many questions. "You both of age and willing?" "Yes," they said simultaneously. "Then I can do it. Need 2 witnesses, though." The store owner, Martha Green, and her husband Paul agreed to stand for them. Within 20 minutes, they were gathered in the justice's small office. The ceremony was brief, practical, nothing like the elaborate wedding Olivia's father had once planned. But as Quinton slipped his mother's ring, the only thing of value he owned, onto Olivia's finger and spoke his vows, his voice was steady and sure. "I, Quinton Vance, take you, Olivia Zimmerman, to be my lawfully wedded wife. I promise to stand beside you, to honor your freedom, and to love you for all my days." Olivia's voice shook but did not break as she repeated her vows, and when Sam pronounced them married, Quinton kissed her softly, sweetly, sealing the promise they had made. They were signing the marriage certificate when the door burst open. Robert Caldwell was tall and handsome in the way of men who had never been denied anything, with cold blue eyes and an expression of outrage. He took in the scene with one sweeping glance. "Olivia, I knew I would find you here. This charade ends now." "Mr. Caldwell," Sam said calmly, placing himself between Robert and Olivia, "you are interrupting official business." "Official business? She is my fiancée. She ran away in a fit of grief, and I have come to take her home where she belongs." "I am not your fiancée," Olivia said, stepping forward despite Quinton's protective instinct to keep her behind him. "I never agreed to marry you, Robert. My father arranged it without my consent, and he is dead. The agreement died with him. You are overwrought, not thinking clearly." Robert's tone was patronizing, dismissive. "Come along now, and we will forget this unpleasant episode." "She is thinking perfectly clearly," Quinton said, his voice carrying the steel of a man who had faced down worse than an arrogant Easterner. "And she is not going anywhere with you." "And who are you?" "He is my husband." Olivia held up her left hand, showing the ring. "We married 5 minutes ago. Whatever claim you thought you had is gone, Robert. Go home." Robert's face flushed dark red. "You married this rancher, some nobody with dirt under his fingernails." "You have lost your mind." "Watch your tongue," Quinton said quietly, but there was warning in every syllable. "Or what? You will challenge me? How very frontier." Robert sneered. "Olivia, when you come to your senses, you will realize what a mistake this was, but by then it may be too late. Come with me now, and I can still salvage your reputation." "My reputation?" Olivia laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You mean your access to my inheritance. That is all you ever wanted, Robert. You made that clear when you tried to force yourself on me after Father's funeral." The room went very still. Quinton moved before thought could catch up, putting himself directly between Olivia and Robert. "You need to leave," he said. "Now. She is lying. She was upset, confused. I am not lying, and everyone in this room knows it." Olivia's voice rang with conviction. "You assaulted me in my own home. When I fought back and refused your suit, you threatened to ruin me socially if I did not comply. That is why I left Philadelphia, Robert. Not grief. Fear. Fear of you." Sam stepped forward, his hand resting meaningfully on the pistol at his hip. "Mr. Caldwell, the lady has made herself clear. She is legally married now, which means any further harassment could be considered a crime. I suggest you take the next stage back east and forget you ever came here." Robert looked around the room, seeing no allies, no sympathy. His expression hardened into something cruel. "This is not over. I will contest the marriage. I will tell everyone she is unstable." "You do that," Quinton said, "but you will do it from far away from my wife. If I see you near our property, if I hear you have been asking about her, if you so much as send a letter, I will take it as a threat and respond accordingly. Are we clear?" For a moment, violence hung in the air between them. Then Robert straightened his coat and turned on his heel. "You will regret this," he said to Olivia. "Both of you." "The only regret I have is not standing up to you sooner," Olivia replied. Robert left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. The tension in the room slowly dissipated, though Quinton kept himself alert, watching through the window until he saw Robert mount a horse and ride toward the hotel. "Well," Sam said, breaking the silence, "that was dramatic. You two all right?" Quinton looked at Olivia, who had gone pale but stood straight and composed. "We are fine. Thank you, Sam. And thank you both," he added to the Greens. "That man has a mean look about him," Martha said, concern creasing her face. "You two be careful heading home." "We will be." They made one more stop before leaving town, at the telegraph office. Quinton sent a message to the territorial marshal in Prescott, detailing Robert's threats and behavior. It might come to nothing, but it established a record if Robert tried anything else. The ride home was quiet. Olivia sat close beside him on the wagon seat, and he kept one arm around her shoulders. Only when they were back on his property, their property now, he realized did she finally break down. He held her while she cried, years of fear and suppressed emotion pouring out. When the storm passed, she pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I am sorry. This is not how anyone should spend their wedding day. We spent it standing together against something ugly. I think that is appropriate, actually. We know now that we can face hard things as a team." She smiled, watery but genuine. "I married you to escape one man and ended up with something real. Is it real for you, truly?" He had to ask, had to know. "Yes." She cupped his face in both hands. "Quinton, what started as desperation became something else so quickly. You make me feel safe, yes, but more than that. You make me feel seen, valued, free. I love you. It happened fast, but it is real." He kissed her then, properly, deeply, claiming her mouth with all the passion he had been holding back. She responded in kind, her fingers threading through his hair, her body pressing against his. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. "Welcome home, Mrs. Vance. Mrs. Vance, I like the sound of that." They went inside together, and Quinton started a fire despite the warmth of the day, needing to do something normal, something grounding. Olivia moved around the kitchen with increasing confidence, and together they made supper a celebration meal of steak and potatoes, with canned peaches for dessert. As they ate, the surreal nature of the day seemed to settle into something more solid. They were married. This was real. And when Olivia caught his eye across the table and blushed, Quinton felt desire coil low in his belly. "Olivia," he said carefully, "tonight we do not have to, that is. I know this happened quickly and I do not expect Quinton." She reached across the table and took his hand. "I want this. I want you. I am nervous but not unwilling. We can take our time. I know. That is one of the many reasons I love you." After supper, Quinton carried her over the threshold of his bedroom, their bedroom now making her laugh. But the laughter faded into something deeper as he set her down and began slowly unlacing her dress, his movements careful and reverent. She trembled under his touch, but when he paused to check if she wanted him to continue, she nodded. "I trust you," she whispered, and those 3 words meant more to him than anything. He made love to her slowly, gently, learning what made her gasp and sigh, showing her with his body all the things he felt in his heart. And when she fell asleep afterward, curled against his side with her head on his chest, Quinton stared at the ceiling and marveled at how completely his life had changed in less than a week. The woman who had knocked on his door asking for water had instead taken everything: his solitude, his careful walls, his protected heart. And in return, she had given him everything that mattered. The following weeks brought a settling-in period that felt almost surreal in its normalcy. Olivia took to ranch life with surprising ease, though there were plenty of adjustments and learning curves. Quinton taught her to ride properly, to shoot, to read the weather in the color of the sky. She taught him to appreciate poetry, to make pie crust that did not resemble leather, to laugh more freely. They heard nothing more from Robert Caldwell. Sam sent word that the man had taken the stage east 2 days after the wedding, and the territorial marshal had made note of his behavior should he ever return. Olivia wrote to her aunt in Prescott, explaining everything. Her aunt wrote back with joy and relief, inviting them to visit whenever they wished, but the real settling happened in smaller moments. The morning, Olivia woke before him and brought coffee to bed, kissing him awake. The afternoon, they got caught in a storm and made love in the barn while rain hammered the roof. The evening, she sang while washing dishes, unconsciously, happily, and he stood in the doorway just listening because the sound was so beautiful. 1 month after their wedding, Olivia brought up something that had been on her mind. "I have been thinking about teaching," she said one evening as they sat on the porch. "There are at least a dozen families around Tonopah Junction with children who need education. I could start a small school. Nothing elaborate, just basics: reading, writing, arithmetic. I think that is an excellent idea. You do? You would not mind me being gone during the day?" "Mind? Olivia, I would never hold you back from something that gives you purpose. Besides, you would only be gone during school hours. We would still have mornings and evenings." He pulled her closer. "Do what makes you happy, that is all I want." She kissed him soundly. "Have I mentioned that I love you?" "Not in the last hour. I was starting to worry." She laughed and swatted his chest, and the conversation moved to practical matters: where to hold classes, how to spread word, what supplies she would need. Quinton listened, offering suggestions, already planning to convert part of the barn into a schoolroom if needed. They visited Prescott the following week to meet Olivia's aunt, Quinton Zimmerman, a handsome woman in her 50s with her niece's sharp eyes and warm smile. She embraced Olivia fiercely and shook Quinton's hand with approval. "You have done well for yourself, Livy," she said, using a nickname Quinton had not heard before. "This one has kind eyes." They stayed 2 days, and Quinton got to see a different side of Olivia. The girl she had been before life hardened her, laughing with her aunt over childhood memories and old family jokes. Catherine pulled him aside before they left. "Thank you for making her happy. After everything with that snake Caldwell, I worried she would never trust anyone again." "She makes me happy too," Quinton said honestly. "I am the fortunate one. You are both fortunate. That is how the best marriages work." The ride home took most of a day, and they camped under the stars that night, lying close in their bedroll and talking about their dreams for the future. "I want children," Olivia said softly. "Is that something you want too?" "Yes, very much." "How many?" "As many as we are blessed with. 3 or 4, maybe. A house full of noise and chaos," she laughed. "A house full of love, you mean?" "That too." She rolled to face him, her expression turning serious. "Quinton, do you ever regret how fast this happened? Do you ever wonder if we should have taken more time?" "No, not once." "Do you?" "No, but I wonder sometimes if you feel trapped. You were so content in your solitude, and then I crashed into your life and changed everything." He brushed her hair back from her face, letting his fingers trail down her cheek. "You did not trap me, you freed me. I did not realize how lonely I was until you showed me what companionship could be. My solitude was not peace, Olivia. It was hiding. You brought me back to life." Her eyes shimmered with tears. "You have such a way with words sometimes. Only when I am telling the truth." They made love under the stars, slow and sweet, and fell asleep tangled together with the desert wind singing around them. By autumn, Olivia's school was in full operation. 8 children from surrounding ranches attended classes 3 days a week in the schoolroom Quinton had built. It was a simple structure attached to the barn, with windows for light, a stove for heat, and benches he had crafted himself. Olivia proved to be a natural teacher, patient but firm, inspiring in her students a genuine love of learning. The school also had the unexpected benefit of bringing the community together. Parents would often linger after dropping off or collecting their children, and these casual gatherings grew into regular social events. Olivia organized a harvest celebration in October, and nearly 40 people came to the ranch for food, music, and dancing. Quinton watched his wife move through the crowd, laughing and talking, so different from the exhausted woman who had knocked on his door 3 months ago. She caught his eye and smiled, and he felt his heart expand with love. "You are a lucky man, Quinton Vance," Sam Morton said, appearing at his elbow with a cup of punch. "I know it. She has brought life to this community. The children are learning, the families are connecting. She is making a real difference. She has a gift for it." "So do you," Sam said thoughtfully. "Building that schoolroom, opening your home like this. You two are good for Tanapa Junction." After the guests left and the cleanup was done, Quinton found Olivia sitting on the porch steps, looking at the stars. "Tired?" he asked, settling beside her, exhausted, but happy. She leaned into him. "Did you enjoy yourself?" "I did. You did well, organizing all that. We did well. I could not have done it without you building the schoolroom, setting up tables, cooking half the food. We make a good team. We do." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Quinton, I have something to tell you." Something in her tone made his heart skip. "What is it?" She took his hand and placed it on her stomach. "I am fairly certain I am pregnant. My courses are late, and I have been feeling unwell in the mornings. I wanted to be sure before I said anything, but after tonight, seeing all those families, I could not wait any longer to tell you." Joy exploded through him, so intense it nearly hurt. "Truly, we are going to have a baby." "Yes." She was crying now, happy tears. "Are you pleased?" "Pleased." "Olivia, I am." Words failed him, so he kissed her instead, trying to pour every ounce of his happiness into the connection. When he pulled back, he was grinning like a fool. "We are going to have a baby. We need to. There is so much to do. A cradle, and we should add a room to the house, and we have time," she said, laughing. "Months yet. But yes, we have a lot to prepare." They sat together, planning and dreaming until the cold drove them inside. That night, Quinton held Olivia with extra care, his hand resting protectively over the place where their child grew, and thought about the strange path that had led them here. A knock on a door, a request for water. And now this, a life being built, a family being created, a future bright with possibility. Winter came to the Arizona territory, bringing cooler temperatures and occasional snow that never lasted long. Olivia's pregnancy progressed well, though the morning sickness was rough for several weeks. Quinton did everything he could to make her comfortable, taking over more of the household duties and hiring a part-time hand to help with the ranch work so he could be close to home. The school continued through winter, though they reduced to 2 days a week when the weather was particularly poor. The children were thriving under Olivia's instruction, and several of them had shown remarkable progress in reading and arithmetic. Their parents were grateful beyond measure. One cold December evening, as they sat by the fire, Olivia suddenly gasped and grabbed Quinton's hand, pressing it to her rounded belly. "Feel that," he waited, and then he felt it, a small, definite movement against his palm. Their baby kicking. Emotion clogged his throat. "That is our child," he said, wonder coloring every word. "Our child," Olivia repeated, her face glowing. "Real and growing and soon to be here. I love you," he said. "I love both of you. We love you too." They spent Christmas quietly, just the two of them, exchanging simple gifts and celebrating the blessings of the past year. Quinton gave Olivia a rocking chair he had built for nursing the baby. She gave him a journal, its first page inscribed, "For the stories you will tell our children about how their parents met. You want me to write it down? I want you to capture it exactly as it happened, the truth, without embellishment. So they know that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected moments." "A woman knocked on my door asking for water," he said slowly, "and I gave her water and everything else." "Everything else," she repeated. "That is us, is not it? We each gave the other everything." "Yes. That is exactly what we did." Spring brought new life to the ranch in every sense. The cattle had calved, Olivia's garden was thriving, and their baby was due within weeks. Olivia had stopped teaching for now, needing to rest and prepare, but she missed her students terribly. They missed her too, bringing by drawings and letters that she treasured. Quinton had never been so simultaneously excited and terrified. He read every book on childbirth he could find, consulted with the doctor in Tonopah Junction, and made sure everything was ready for when the time came. But he knew, ultimately, that Olivia would have to do the hardest work, and he could only support her through it. Labor began on a warm May morning, starting slow and building gradually. The doctor arrived by midday and settled in, assuring them both that everything was progressing normally. But as the hours wore on and Olivia's pain increased, Quinton felt helpless in a way he had never experienced. "I am here," he kept saying, holding her hand, wiping her face with cool cloths. "You are so strong, you can do this." "It hurts," she gasped between contractions. "I know, I am so sorry. But soon we will meet our baby." Night fell, and still the labor continued. Quinton refused to leave her side despite the doctor's suggestion that he wait elsewhere. This was his wife, his child. He would not abandon them to this trial. Finally, near midnight, the baby came, a squalling, red-faced, perfect baby boy. The doctor placed him on Olivia's chest, and she cried out in joy, touching his face with trembling fingers. "He is beautiful," she breathed. "Quinton, look at him." Quinton could barely see through his own tears. "He is perfect. You are perfect. I love you so much." Their son, whom they named James after Quinton's father, was healthy and strong, with his mother's dark hair and his father's blue eyes. Quinton held him for the first time and felt the final piece of his heart click into place. "Hello, James," he whispered. "Welcome to your life. Your mother and I have been waiting for you." The baby blinked up at him, and Quinton could have sworn he saw recognition there, as if James knew already that he was loved beyond measure. The weeks after James's birth were a blur of sleepless nights and steep learning curves. But they navigated it together, taking turns walking the floor when he cried, marveling at every tiny sound and movement. Olivia proved to be a natural mother, though she struggled sometimes with the sheer exhaustion of it. "I love him so much," she said one night, tears streaming down her face as she nursed him. "But I am so tired, Quinton. Is that terrible?" "It is not terrible. It is honest. You are doing an incredible job, and you are allowed to be exhausted." He rubbed her shoulders gently. "Rest when you can. I am here to help. The community rallied around them as well. Martha Green brought meals twice a week. Other ranch wives stopped by with advice, baby clothes, and offers to watch James so Olivia could nap. Even Sam Morton came by with a wooden toy horse he had carved for when the baby was older. "Takes a village," Sam said with a grin. "Or in our case, a territory." As summer arrived and James grew stronger, Olivia began thinking about returning to teaching. She missed it, missed the children and the sense of purpose it gave her, but she struggled with the guilt of leaving James. "I feel pulled in two directions," she confessed to Quinton. "I love being his mother, but I also love teaching. Can I do both?" "Of course you can. We will figure it out together. Maybe reduce to 1 day a week to start, bring James with you when possible." The older students would probably enjoy having a baby around, and it would teach them about caring for infants. "You really think it could work?" "I know it can. Olivia, you do not have to choose between being a mother and being yourself. You can be both." In fact, James will benefit from seeing his mother pursue her passions. It will teach him that women are not limited to one role. She kissed him soundly. "How did I get so lucky?" "Luck had nothing to do with it. You knocked on the right door." They established a new routine over the following months. Olivia taught 1 day a week, bringing James in a sling. The students were indeed delighted by the baby, and the older girls especially took to helping care for him during lessons. It gave Olivia the intellectual stimulation she craved while keeping her son close. Quinton expanded the ranch operations, adding more horses to breed and sell. The income was good, allowing them to make improvements to the house and property. They added 2 bedrooms, planning ahead for more children, and built a proper barn to replace the older structure. Life settled into a rhythm that felt right. Hard work balanced with family time. Challenges met together. Love that deepened with each passing day. When James was 18 months old, Olivia discovered she was pregnant again. This time, the announcement was met with excitement rather than surprise. They knew what to expect now, were more prepared, more confident. "2 children," Quinton said, wonder in his voice as he held James on his lap and placed his free hand on Olivia's still flat stomach. "We are becoming a real family." "We became a real family the day we married," Olivia corrected. "We are just expanding it." Their daughter, Emma, arrived the following spring on a morning filled with birdsong. Her birth was easier than James's had been, and she came into the world with less drama, opening her eyes calmly as if assessing her new environment before deciding whether to cry. "She has your temperament," Quinton told Olivia, grinning. "Already sizing things up before committing." "Poor girl, saddled with a practical nature from birth," Olivia joked, but her eyes were soft as she looked at her daughter. James, now a toddling 2-year-old, was fascinated by his baby sister. He wanted to touch her constantly, to bring her his toys, to help in any way his small hands could manage. Watching him with Emma, seeing the gentle way he tried to soothe her when she cried, Quinton felt proud beyond words. "You are a good big brother," he told James one day. "Emmy mine," James declared with toddler certainty. "Yes, Emmy is yours, and you are hers. You will look out for each other always." The years that followed were full ones. The ranch prospered, becoming one of the most successful in the region. Olivia's school grew, and eventually the community built a proper schoolhouse in Tonopah Junction, hiring Olivia as the official teacher. She worked 3 days a week, with Quinton and a hired girl splitting childcare duties. James grew into a serious, thoughtful boy who loved books as much as horses. Emma was pure sunshine, laughing easily and making friends with every creature on the ranch. They were joined by another son, Daniel, when James was 6, and then a final daughter, Sarah, 2 years after that. 4 children. A house full of noise and love and chaos, exactly as Quinton had once imagined. He and Olivia had their hands full, but they had helped the community that had embraced them, the bonds they had built over the years, and most importantly, each other. One evening, when the children were finally asleep and the house was quiet, Quinton and Olivia sat on their porch as they had done hundreds of times before. But this time, they were celebrating their 10th wedding anniversary. 10 years, Olivia said, leaning into him. It feels like forever and no time at all. I know exactly what you mean. Do you ever think about that day when I knocked on your door all the time? Best day of my life, even if I did not know it yet, she laughed softly. I was so scared of the heat of Robert, of my whole future. And then you opened the door and offered me water, and something in me just knew. Knew what? That I had found home, not a place you were home. He kissed the top of her head. You were home for me too. I just had not realized I was homeless until you arrived. They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars emerge. From inside, one of the children called out in sleep, and Olivia started to rise, but the child settled again without waking fully. They are growing so fast, she said. James will be a man before we know it. He has time yet, they all do. Quinton took her hand, running his thumb over the ring he had placed there a decade ago. We have built something good here, Olivia, something that will last. We have. And it all started with water from a well. I gave you water, he said, smiling, and you gave me everything else. Purpose. Love, a family, a life worth living. We gave each other everything, she corrected. That is how love works best. Inside, Emma cried out, and this time the sound persisted. Olivia rose to go to her, but Quinton stood too. I will get her, you rest. I can, I know you can. But you do not have to do everything alone. You never have to do anything alone. She smiled at him, that same smile that had first captured his heart. I love you, Quinton Vance. I love you too, Olivia Vance, for all my days. He went inside to comfort Emma, while Olivia remained on the porch a moment longer, looking out at the land they had built their life on. In the distance, she could just make out the well where it had all begun, the well she had approached, desperate and afraid, asking a stranger for water. That stranger had given her so much more: safety, love, freedom, a family, a purpose, a life beyond anything she had imagined possible, and in return she had given him the same. The years continued to pass with the steady rhythm of ranch life. James grew tall and capable, learning everything Quinton could teach him about horses and cattle, but also inheriting his mother's love of books and learning. At 16, he was already being courted by universities back east, though he seemed inclined to stay and help run the ranch. Emma, at 14, was the heart of the family, always mediating disputes between her brothers, always knowing who needed comfort or encouragement. She had started teaching younger children on Saturdays, following in her mother's footsteps with natural ease. Daniel, 12, was the wild one, always testing boundaries and seeking adventure. He gave Quinton gray hairs, but also made him laugh more than anyone except Olivia. Sarah, the youngest at 10, was quiet and artistic, spending hours drawing the landscape and animals around her. Watching them all together, Quinton sometimes had to remind himself that this was his life, that he had helped create these remarkable people. The lonely rancher he had once been seemed like a different person entirely. Olivia still taught, though she had reduced her hours as the children required more attention with their own education. She had established a small library at the schoolhouse, funded by donations and her own money, and it had become a point of pride for the community. On their 15th anniversary, Quinton arranged for the children to stay with Martha and Paul Green so he could take Olivia away for a few days. They rode to a small cabin in the mountains that he had discovered years ago, a place of stunning beauty and perfect solitude. "This is wonderful," Olivia said, standing on the cabin's porch and looking at the pine-covered slopes. "When did you find this place?" "Years ago, on a cattle drive. I always thought it would be perfect for an escape." They spent 3 days there, talking and laughing and making love like newlyweds. Without the constant demands of children and ranch, they rediscovered each other. Not that they had ever lost connection, but this was different. This was intentional focus, pure attention, the gift of time. On their last night, lying tangled together under quilts, Olivia said, "Thank you for this. I needed it more than I realized." "So did I." He stroked her hair, still dark but now threaded with silver that he found beautiful. 15 years. We have done well, have we not?" "We have done wonderfully. 4 healthy children, a thriving ranch, a place in this community, more than I ever dreamed possible. Do you ever miss Philadelphia, your old life?" "Never, not once." She propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. "That was not a life, Quinton. It was an existence. This is living. This is real. No regrets. Only that I did not find you sooner." She kissed him softly. "But perhaps it happened exactly when it was meant to. Perhaps we were not ready for each other any earlier. Perhaps you are right." They returned home to find the children had been perfect angels for the Greens, or so Martha claimed, though her exhausted expression suggested otherwise. The family fell back into routine, but something had shifted. Quinton and Olivia had reconnected in a way that deepened their partnership even further, and it showed in how they moved together, almost telepathically understanding what the other needed. The children noticed, though they could not have articulated what was different. But James, the observant one, said to his mother one day, "You and Papa seem extra happy lately." "We are always happy," Olivia said. "I know, but different happy. Like when you look at each other, you smile different." Olivia smiled then, that different smile. "Your father and I had a chance to remember why we fell in love. Sometimes, with all the busyness of life, adults need that. Will I understand when I am older? When you find someone to love, yes, you will understand completely." More years passed. James left for university in California, studying agriculture and business with plans to return and expand the ranch operations. Emma began courting a young teacher from Prescott, a serious young man named Thomas who treated her like a queen. Daniel found his calling training horses, showing a natural gift that surpassed even Quinton's considerable skill. Sarah continued drawing, and Olivia sent samples of her work to a gallery in San Francisco, hoping to give her youngest the opportunities she deserved. Olivia and Quinton aged together, their love deepening rather than fading. He was 50 now, she 47, and they had built a legacy that would outlive them, a family, a community, a life of meaning and purpose. One evening in late summer, with all the children gathered for James's return from university, they sat around the expanded dinner table, and Quinton looked at his family with overwhelming gratitude. 4 adult children, Emma's fiancé and Olivia beside him, still beautiful, still the axis around which his world turned. "I would like to make a toast," he said, standing and raising his glass. Everyone quieted. 22 years ago, a woman knocked on my door asking for water. I gave her water and she gave me everything that matters. This family, this life, all of it stems from that moment. So I toast to chance encounters, to brave women who ask for what they need, and to love that grows beyond all expectation." "To love," everyone echoed. Olivia's eyes shimmered with tears as she met his gaze across the table. 22 years, and she could still make his heart race with a look. After dinner, after the children had dispersed to their various activities, Quinton found Olivia in their bedroom, looking at an old photograph of their wedding day, one of the first photographs taken in Tonopah Junction. "We were so young," she said. "We were. Younger than James is now." Did we know what we were getting into? Not at all. He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. But we figured it out together. She leaned back into him. I am glad I knocked on your door that day. So am I. Every single day I am glad. The autumn of their 25th year of marriage brought changes. Emma married Thomas in a ceremony on the ranch, with the whole community attending. James announced plans to build his own house on the property's eastern section, wanting to stay close but establish his own household. Daniel took over the horse breeding operation entirely, and Sarah received word that a gallery in San Francisco wanted to show her work. Olivia retired from teaching finally, though she continued volunteering at the library and mentoring young teachers. Quinton began transitioning more of the ranch operations to James and Daniel, not retiring exactly, but stepping back to enjoy the fruits of decades of labor. They took to spending afternoons on the porch, watching the desert landscape they had come to love, talking about everything and nothing. Sometimes friends visited, sometimes it was just the two of them, and both were equally pleasant. You know what I think about sometimes, Olivia said one day. What is that? Robert Caldwell. I wonder what happened to him. Why waste thought on him? Not waste just curiosity. He set so much in motion. If he had not pursued me, I might never have come to Arizona. We might never have met. Quinton considered this. So in a way, we should thank him. I would not go that far, Olivia said dryly, but I can acknowledge that his cruelty inadvertently led to my happiness. Life is strange that way. It is indeed. They learned, years later through a letter from Philadelphia, that Robert had died in a riding accident, drunk and reckless. Olivia felt nothing at the news, no triumph or sadness. He was simply a person from another life, one that no longer had power over her. Their 25th anniversary came, and the children threw them a celebration at the ranch. It seemed the entire town came, plus friends from surrounding areas. There was music and dancing, food and laughter, speeches and toasts. Quinton danced with Olivia under the stars, holding her close, marveling that she was still here, still his, still choosing him every day. Best 25 years of my life, he murmured into her hair. Mine too. Here is to 25 more. Ambitious, but I like it. They would not get 25 more. Life was not that generous, but they got 15, and they were good years. Years of watching grandchildren arrive and grow. Years of seeing their children build lives of meaning and purpose. Years of deepening into the kind of love that required no words, that existed in looks and touches and the simple comfort of presence. Emma and Thomas had 3 children. James married a woman from California and had 4. Daniel married a local rancher's daughter and had 2. Sarah, the independent one, never married but had a son whom she raised with the help of the family, and her art became celebrated throughout the West. Quinton and Olivia became the family's center, the ones everyone came home to, the keepers of stories and traditions. Their house was always full of grandchildren seeking cookies or stories, and they relished every minute of it. When Quinton was 65, he had a health scare. His heart, the doctor said, weakened by decades of hard living before he had met Olivia. It was not fatal, but it was a warning. He needed to slow down more, rest more, let his body recover. Olivia nursed him through it with fierce determination, and once he was recovered, she extracted a promise. No more pretending you are 30, she said. You are 65, act like it. I am fine now. Now, yes. But you will not be if you keep pushing yourself. We have children and grandchildren to help with the work. Let them. I need you here with me, Quinton Vance. I am not done with you yet. He smiled and took her hand. I am not done with you either. I promised to slow down, and he did mostly. But slowing down did not mean stopping. He still rode out to check cattle, still worked with the horses, still maintained the ranch alongside his sons. He just did it at a more reasonable pace, listening to his body's warnings before they became crises. Olivia developed arthritis in her hands, making writing difficult, but she took it in stride. "I wrote enough words in my teaching years to last a lifetime," she said. "Now I will focus on speaking them instead." And she did, becoming the family storyteller, gathering grandchildren around her to share tales of the old days, of Tanapa Junction when it was barely a town, of their grandmother arriving desperate for water, and their grandfather offering not just water but a life. They celebrated their 40th anniversary, surrounded by 4 generations, their children, their grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. The house and property they had built together had become a genuine compound, with multiple homes now housing the extended family. At the celebration, James stood to speak. Now 52 and looking more like Quinton every year, he addressed the crowd with emotion. "Most people do not get to see the love my parents share. They built something that was not just about them, it was about creating a foundation for all of us. They taught us that love is not just a feeling but a choice, made every day, sometimes in big ways but mostly in small ones. They taught us that family is everything, that community matters, and that hard work combined with compassion builds a life worth living. Papa, Mama, thank you for showing us how it is done." The crowd erupted in applause, and Quinton saw his children and grandchildren, saw what he and Olivia had created, and felt complete satisfaction. This was legacy. This was immortality, not in fame or fortune, but in family, in values passed down, in love multiplied across generations. That night, alone in their bedroom, Olivia said, "We did well. We did extraordinary. I am tired, Quinton, happily tired but tired. I know, my love, so am I." They held each other as they had done thousands of nights before, and fell asleep wrapped in the warmth of 40 years together. Quinton passed first, at 73, peacefully in his sleep after a day spent riding with his grandsons. Olivia woke to find him gone, and though the grief was immense, there was comfort in knowing he had died happy, surrounded by family, having lived fully. She survived him by 3 years, kept going by her children and grandchildren who refused to let her retreat into grief. She continued telling stories, continued gathering the family, continued choosing life even though part of her heart was gone. On what would have been their 43rd anniversary, Olivia asked her children to take her to the well where it had all begun. It was still there, maintained by the family, though indoor plumbing had long since made it unnecessary for daily use. She stood before it, leaning on Emma's arm, and looked at the structure that had changed her life. "I came here with nothing," she said quietly, "afraid and desperate. And he gave me water, and with it hope, purpose, love, everything that mattered. I have had a beautiful life, children. Do not mourn too much when I am gone. Celebrate instead. Celebrate that 2 people found each other against all odds and built something lasting." "We will, Mama," Emma promised, tears streaming down her face. Olivia passed quietly in her sleep 2 weeks later, and her children honored her request. The funeral was a celebration, filled with music and stories and laughter alongside the tears. She was buried beside Quinton on a hill overlooking the ranch, their graves marked with simple headstones that bore their names, dates, and a single line. She knocked asking for water. He gave her everything. But their story did not end with their deaths. It continued in James, who ran the ranch with the same integrity his father had shown. In Emma, who established a scholarship fund for young teachers. In Daniel, whose horses became renowned throughout the territory. In Sarah, whose art captured the beauty of the West and hung in museums. It continued in the grandchildren, who grew up hearing stories of the rancher and the woman who knocked on his door, who understood that their family legacy was built on a foundation of water offered freely, of kindness extended without expectation, of love that grew from the smallest of seeds into something magnificent. The ranch itself became a landmark, known throughout Arizona as the Vance family property, where hospitality was always offered and water was never denied to anyone who asked. The well was preserved, and eventually a plaque was added, telling the story of Quinton and Olivia for future generations. The town of Tonopah Junction grew and changed over the decades that followed, but the schoolhouse Olivia had taught in was maintained as a historical site. Children still learned there, taught by teachers inspired by her legacy. The library she had founded became the Olivia Zimmerman Vance Library, a beautiful building filled with books and light. And sometimes, visitors to the ranch would stand by that old well and imagine a desperate woman approaching on a hot August day, her lips cracked from thirst, her future uncertain. They would imagine a lonely rancher who chose kindness, who saw another human in need and responded without hesitation. They would imagine the love story that unfolded from that simple act, the family that grew from that chance encounter, the legacy built on water and compassion, and a choice to see the divine spark in another person. The story became legend, told and retold, but at its heart remained the simple truth. She knocked asking to use his well. The rancher gave her the water and everything else. And from that exchange, from that moment of grace and generosity, an entire world was born, a family, a community, a love that transcended time and touched everyone who heard its story. In the end, it was not the ranch that was their greatest legacy, nor the school, nor even their children, remarkable as they all were. Their greatest legacy was the proof that love can grow from the smallest acts of kindness, that two broken people can heal each other, and that sometimes the most important thing we can offer another person is not just what they ask for, but everything we have to give. The desert wind still blows across the ranch, carrying stories in its whisper. The well still stands, a monument to a moment when one person's desperate need met another person's generous heart. And somewhere in the great mystery beyond, two souls who found each other against all odds rest together, their love story complete but never truly ending, because love, real love, the kind that transforms lives and creates legacies, that kind of love never dies. It lives on in every act of kindness, in every stranger who stops to help, in every person who chooses compassion over indifference, who offers not just what is requested, but everything that is needed. It lives on in the understanding that we are all just travelers through this difficult world, and sometimes the greatest gift we can receive is simply water for our journey, freely given, no strings attached, offered with an open heart. Quinton offered water. Olivia accepted and offered her whole self in return. Together, they built something that outlasted them both, something that continues still in the lives they touched, the family they created, and the story they left behind, a story that began with a knock on a door and blossomed into forever.